Hello everyone, this is your quick swing trading stock market outlook for the week of November 14th. And each week I go through this process. I look at how the indicators, how the market health indicators are performing, how the major indices are performing, how the recent stocks I've been watching are performing, sector performance. What this does is it gives me an overall sense of how healthy the market is, whether I want to be trading at all. And then based on that, I can look for individual stocks, look for patterns within those stocks, and trade triggers. So this is essentially the start of the trading process, just deciding are conditions good enough for taking some longs. The watch lists will be updated shortly, but let's get to the stock watch list, stocks that I'm interested in. And right now, we can see, just based on this little chart, everything in short-term uptrends at the moment. The NASDAQ just got above its prior highs. I want to see if that one continues a little bit. It's been one of the weakest sectors and one of the weakest indices. So it'd be nice to see if this can start building an uptrend. We can see pretty solid uptrends in all of these the last month or so. The IWM, that looks at the Russell 2000, small cap stocks in the US. The S&P 500 really building a nice little short-term uptrend right now. Doesn't mean it can't reverse. We can see we have a longer-term downtrend going on, but how do you think longer-term downtrends reverse? They start by short-term uptrends like this. So we'll definitely have some ups and downs along the way, but at least for right now, we're moving up. That means, hey, I'm willing to take some trades. The only thing that's a little junk, and this whole index is pretty much junk anyway, is the Canadian small caps, and this has massively underperformed pretty much any other index. So not a real valuable thing. I think next week I'll replace it with something else just to provide some other insights into other areas of the market. Overall, the Canadian market, the little bit bigger stocks, we can see building a nice uptrend as well, making higher highs, higher lows over the last month or so. So those are good. It's nice to see them all moving in unison as well. That shows widespread buying interest across multiple sectors, multiple indices which are tracking different segments of the market. So no real uptrends there, no real issues there. Price action perspective, those are looking good. And state of the market health indicators, really strong at the moment. All of them were good last week, except for last week we were hovering just above this. I'll go through what each one of these are. And the only thing that wasn't good was we'd had a pretty big drop of more than 2% in a day. And those are usually warning signs, just that volatility is still high. But we had this massive move up. So that's the bigger version. I'll run through these quickly. So this is showing how many stocks are above their 50-day moving average in the S&P 500 and the entire U.S. stock market. 81% of S&P 500 stocks above their 50-day moving average, 71% of all U.S. stocks. It's just going to be a lot easier to make money when you're buying and on the long side if most stocks are in short-term uptrends. Right now we have that, so that is good. Volume, not too important. We had a follow-through day way back here. Other than that, I don't look at volume too much. The dark blue lines, the daily percentage movement of the S&P, just for that day. Negative 2% days are usually not good signs. Those are occurring during downtrends, at the start of downtrends, and we had a couple of them here in the last, since the start of November. And so that's not a great sign. So that's the only one I would say is it would be negative, but we also just had this monster upside day of 5% in the S&P 500 on Thursday. So I have to give that some credit too. That doesn't happen very often. So we had two really bad days this month. Those minus 2% days still showing there's a lot of volatility out there. It is... Let me also explain that usually during uptrends, it is very quiet on this. You have 0.2%, 0.3% upside maybe down 1%, up 1%. But this indicator is very flat and is trading inside of these 2% levels. With 2% moves are just not common in the S&P 500 during an uptrend. And you can just see during this entire year, we've had moments of calm, but really these are big moves that we have been seeing, and they're just not typical of uptrends. So as long as we see these big moves, it's hard to call this like a true uptrend, and that's why from a price action perspective it is, but it's still showing a bit of warning that volatility is really high, and we just don't see this too often during nice calm uptrends once they get going. So this will hopefully, this is the start of a new uptrend, and this will start to diminish off and become more typical of uptrending behavior, where we don't have these massive 3% drops followed by 5% upside days. So that one, kind of neutral to poor, still showing a lot of volatility out there. But the advanced decline line, we are moving up. This is just how many stocks are advancing versus stocks that are declining on a given day, and it's a cumulative index, and we can see it is moving up. It's in an uptrend at the moment, progressing up, so we can't complain about that. I also like to look at, and the final one, haven't had any really interesting things on this one recently. This is just total volume of stocks moving up divided by total volume of stocks moving down on the NYSE. Basically tracks buying and selling enthusiasm. It's all the way back on October 17th that we had a 94% upside day, at least according to my indicators calculations here. And so nothing too important there. Nice to see some stronger buying days, but we also had one really strong selling day in there. So I'd say it's neutral to good. Like I said, nothing really coming out of it recently. And then really it comes down to the ultimate indicators. If you're trading, how are those trades working out right now? That tells me how much money I want to deploy. If the trades I'm picking are going good, hey, then by all means keep deploying capital. If for whatever reason the stocks you're looking at aren't doing well, then find out what's going on. Maybe look at see where you're making the mistakes, see if there's other stocks that are doing well. And so right now I'd say it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's decent. I've had some of these ones that I've been watching off the best day trading stocks list. I'd say like half do really well, half don't. They just kind of float sideways or drop. There was also a ton of earnings this last week, which kind of messes things up a little bit because they might have been moving sideways and then all of a sudden you have these massive drops or massive spikes. And I don't hold trades through earnings. So it'll be nice to see this week. A lot of the earnings are done in the stocks I was watching. So we get a better sense of, now that the news is done, now that the market's moving up, how are these things going to respond? But even the ones that didn't have earnings, it was kind of 50-50. Some went up, some went down. So it's okay as long as you're making a little bit more in your winners than you are in your losers. I think it's still, the overall conditions are good, worth deploying some capital. And as I said, the best swing trading stocks list will be updated for sure by midweek, and same with the stock watch list for the contraction patterns and cup and handle patterns. Those ones I'll be updating as well. That should be early in the week. Sectors on the move. A little bit of a change up this week. The technology and communication services blasted off. Really good week for them. But they've been the worst performers over the last 3 months. So I want to see if that's more of a dead cat bounce than, just a little bit of an oversold rally, as opposed to these other ones that I have listed here: basic materials, industrials, financials, energy. They've been strong for the last few months, or stronger than everything else. They are sitting near the top of all these time frames, a little bit lower on the last week, just because they got bumped out by technology and communication services, which were strong. Same with real estate. Real estate's been a really weak sector over the longer term. So these really weak ones got a bit of a bounce. Overall, that's nice to see. It's nice to see now everything's kind of moving up the last month or so. So that's really nice to see. But for the moment, I would say basic materials, industrials, financials, and energy still seem to be the best kind of ones that have been doing well for a while and are still doing pretty well even in the short term. Energy a little bit weaker this week. It still went up, but not as much. So what I'm doing right now this week, I'm going to be looking for swing trades, looking to deploy some capital. I did not deploy any last week, just based on some of those big downside moves we saw in the S&P. I opted to stay out, and still had some positions from before those, so still some exposure, and we'll be looking to add to that as this uptrend that we're in continues, hopefully. I'm also always day trading stocks, day trading the Euro USD, and if you want to see how to do that, what I like about that is that it doesn't matter as much about market conditions. You just go into those stocks, whether they're going up or down, as long as they form the patterns you trade, you can trade them. And yes, that was really good in a year like 2022 when we didn't have a lot of buying swing trading opportunities. And if you want to see how I do that, the Euro US day trading course and the price action stock trading course. Excited about this one. It is not going to be out till about November 20th. And yeah, so you can really excited to share those methods with you. So until next week, happy trading.